Freeman and excited to be here and to help host our speaker today. So don't forget, for those of you who are in the Convocations class, after the presentation, be sure to complete the survey, the required survey. Do you guys all know what I'm talking about? All right, and feel free to email Dr. Freeman if you have any other questions about the class. Welcome to all of you who are not in the Convocations class and from the community. I'm glad to have you here. All right, today's speaker is Rabbi Joe Charnes. Rabbi Charnes received his BA in psychology from California State University, Northridge. He went on to study in traditional Jewish seminaries in Los Angeles, California, Brooklyn, New York, and Jerusalem, Israel, and was ordained by Rabbi Mordecai Finley, PhD, former president and provost of the Academy for Jewish Religion in California. Rabbi Joe's teachings center around exploring both the practical and mystic dimensions of Jewish wisdom. He is also deeply devoted to interfaith dialogue and engagement, and has been involved in numerous Jewish, Christian, interfaith, and multi-faith events. He has studied Judaism, Christianity, and Buddhism comparatively for over 25 years, and more recently Hinduism and Mormonism, and has been a frequent guest lecturer at seminaries, universities, churches, synagogues, mosques, and military bases across the country. Sounds like across the world, too. Rabbi Joe Charnes is married to his beautiful wife, Sarah Schechter, a rabbi and Air Force chaplain, recently retired. They live in the Denver area with their lovely daughter, Yael Emuna, who is also with us today. So, round of applause to please welcome Rabbi Joe Charnes.
Not staying on. Okay. We set the phone to stay on, and it didn't stay on. It's turning off. I'll discuss this in a moment for you. Broadening our sacred vision. Before we begin, before I offer thanks, I'd like us to ground in something grand, something beautiful, and in something nourishing. I'd like to begin with a chant, simple chant, simple word, has deep relevance, potential to transform our lives. It's the word shalom, and if you're comfortable, simply means wholeness and peace. If you're comfortable with call and response, set the atmosphere, the environment for where I'd like to explore today during our time together. I would love it if you could all chant back in the call and response portion whatever melodic melody I share. I've simplified it so it's very basic, and the word itself is just shalom. So it's a chant, melody, it's something that hopefully will touch us within, allow it to. So I would say if you're comfortable again, please join in the call and response. We'll do it a couple of times. Close your eyes, begin to center, and I'll say it first and you simply respond. Shalom. 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 I always start off my sessions, prayer service, studies, with a chant. Although it's a simple word, again, meaning peace or wholeness. We make it into a melody. Make a word into a melody. Together. The hope is that we can transform that melodic word into a meditation. It will become a practice in life. Living meditation, something that guides us in life, in our way in life, so that we can serve with peace, bring more wholeness into the world. That's ultimately the focus of all sacred tradition, and ideally, we don't have a sacred reference in life for the higher dimensions that every person has within themselves. Something much better than we often manifest. And so my focus always is to remind us through melody, chant, meditation, hopefully a life is living with that wisdom, that peace is available. Peace is something we can bring. Wholeness, the other meaning of the word, shalom, wholeness, can result, not on a global scale, because there are too many people who aren't interested, but at least in our immediate world, our immediate reference, immediate vision before us, we can have greater wholeness and greater peace and greater connections between us. And the truth is, you have a practice of peace and a practice of seeking wholeness. Nothing I say today will deepen your life, heal your life, or heal this world more than your practice of peace, no matter how eloquent I may be, whatever saint or sage you follow. You take on dedicated practice to recovering wholeness, shalom, recovering and restoring peace. The world will change regardless of what anybody else does. Your world will change. So now with that, I'll begin with where most people probably begin, which is the thankfulness and the gratitude that I have for being here at Snow College with Jay Olson. He's the vice president and the technical college, or technical education. I think that's his title, Vice President for Technical Education. We met at the Manti Temple a few months ago when it had its open house, and it was a beautiful temple. It was also a wonderful encounter, time together spent. I'm grateful for. And he couldn't be here today. He's at another conference, San Diego. But he set me up with Professor Eric Freeman, professor here of history. And we've had wonderful conversations, and I'm sorry to say he's not here either, so I haven't gotten to meet him. But I'm starting to take it personally. Nobody's coming who invites me. But he set me up in the wonderful hands and heart of Professor Libby Peterson. Liberty, I love that name. We're all seeking more liberty internally. So thank you for being present and accompanying me, and pleasure, real pleasure. My focus today is on broadening our sacred vision. That's the title I decided to give my talk, or my reflection. And the truth is, That's what we started with. At meditation, old chant, even though it was very brief, we normally go on much longer. But my focus is always on broadening our vision, both within and without. And I use the term broadening our sacred vision. And I was debating, should I just say broadening our vision? But I decided that I am a person of faith, I'm a rabbi, and I do view life through a sacred lens, but also through a human lens. They're integrated. But for those who may not have a sacred outlook on life, that you have a materialistic view of life. You see life through biochemical reactions and through brilliance of physicists, which I have no understanding of. They are simply beyond my level of comprehension. But if that's your reference, I would simply say just change broadening our sacred vision to broadening the vision that we all have within us, a higher dimension, because we are simply human. Broadening our vision of humanity, because we are more than simply animals. We are exalted animals in that form. Exalted aspect within us that we often don't live up to. So broadening our sacred vision is my focus. And I'll fill out the title in a moment because I had more, and I decided to leave that for the end. But my focus will be on two levels. One personal, regarding the person. The other soulful, or again, if your reference does not include a soulful or spiritual side, then the higher elements of our humanity, broadening our humanity. And what I'm first going to do is explain, at least in the Hebrew mind, Hebrew understanding of this word broadening. Lovely word in English, but in Hebrew, it gives us more insight into the power and the potential and the way of broadening. Because life often narrows. Life often narrows us. And we need help broadening. So I'm going to discuss the personal and the soulful aspects of broadening our vision. First, I want you to understand a little bit about what broadening is, at least in a Hebraic sense. I'm going to get into a little grammar, so this is nap time for some of you. I know grammar just causes the eyes to glaze over. I love grammar. I'm a grammarian. I'm a linguist. I could sit here and talk all day on grammar, but I'm going to spare you that. So the first aspect, the word broadening, or to broaden, but the word broadening is harchava. And the word to broaden, we say laharchiv. And what's interesting about that word to broaden, laharchiv, is grammatically in the form that it is expressed in Hebrew. There's a certain letter in it that gives it a unique aspect, and it's causal. So the idea here, grammatically, its form is causal, and it's telling us that to broaden doesn't simply just happen. There needs to be a cause or an agent behind broadening. Narrowing happens, but to broaden not only our vision, but every other aspect of life. Hearts, minds, love. To broaden takes a cause. Dedicated effort. Another word we use, it's the same root, it's just a different form. And it's for the word broaden. And we say mizrachev. Or if you speak modern Hebrew, sorry, folks, my Hebrew is influenced by Yiddish, so we butcher it. But in Israel, they would say mitrachev. I say mizrachev. And what's fascinating about that word and the insight that it gives us into a way of living with more breadth, fullness of breadth in terms of vision, is the first aspect of it, in its grammatical form, its verbal form, is that it's intensive. It's in the PL form, which has an idea of intensity. Now, in Hebrew, it doesn't only mean the nuance of intensity is I'm simplifying it. One element of the intensity is just like in English. The difference between break and crush. Crushing is much more intense or intensive than simply break. But in Hebrew, it's the same word. It's just put into this grammatical construct or form of the PL, which is more intensive. It can also be repetitive. That's a form of intensity. He's walking back and forth. That's a form of intense action. But I'm referring specifically here to the breaking versus crushing, that form of intensity. And the reason I think this word of broadening has this element to it, two other elements that we're going to discuss, that will help guide us into a broader way of living. It's intensive because broadening our minds, vision, hearts, our emotions, it's not a casual affair. It has to be an intensely devoted practice. To broaden against all the forces that are narrowing, we have to have as much intensity to broaden as there is intensity to narrow. Like entropy, the forces, everything is breaking down. Another aspect of this verb is rachev, in addition to intense, dedicated action, is that it's reflexive. It's reflexive. And grammatically what that means is it's done to oneself. So if I wash my hands, if I wash the dishes, that's a verb. It's an action. But if it's reflexive, we would say, as far as a verb for washing, we would say, I wash myself. So it's something done to oneself. So in addition to being intense, there's an intensity behind our action. There's also a reflexive dimension because broadening has to be done to oneself. Nobody else can do it for you. We have to take on that practice if you want to broaden, if you want to expand, if you want to enhance your life. And the third aspect of this word, mitrachev, is that it's a participle. It's a verbal adjective technically, a gerund and an infinitive or other verbals. It's a participle. And what this does to fill out the overall picture of broadening, or to broaden in Hebrew, is that it's intensive, or it's causal first with the harchiv. But in this form, mitrachev, we are intensely devoted to the practice. It's something we engage ourselves with so we can broaden within. But it's also a participle, which one aspect of a participle can be an ongoing process, a present participle, walking, singing, eating. It's something it's an ongoing action that we're doing now. And the idea or connection that has with broadening or to broaden is that it's not a one-time event. I have broadened and now I am redeemed. I am free. Broadening is an ongoing practice, regular, dedicated practice. That's why it has that progressive, ongoing activity of the participle. So those three the aspects, intensity, reflexive, and ongoing in terms of a participle, that gives us a way into the world, the vision of broadening in terms of its Hebrew basis, its Hebrew root. And I think broadening requires wisdom. Can't broaden without wisdom. World in Proverbs 8, the earth was created, it says. It's imagery in Proverbs, because the world was created with wisdom. God used wisdom. There's wisdom available, woven into the fabric of existence. Heavens were established with a form of the word for understanding, guna. So, if wisdom is involved in the process of creation, the earth, world, imagine what having a practice, wisdom can do for your world. How more broadly, it's amazing. This world is so grand, and yet wisdom was a part of that creative process. Wisdom can also create new worlds within us, allowing us to see new worlds within, for us. So, with that as background for the idea of broadening, now we'll focus on broadening our vision, sacred vision, vision of higher humanity, whatever your reference is. And I'm going to focus now on those two aspects, the personal dimension, how do we broaden, and then how do we broaden in the world of soul? How do we broaden in the world of spirit? Actually, the original title I was going to use, I thought I wouldn't for various reasons, was Broadening Our Sacred Vision by Narrowing Our Focus. I thought I'll explain that in our talk. But what does that mean? Broadening our vision? Yeah, I understand that. I should see more broadly. Less boundaries. Stop narrowing my focus. Now I'm saying broadening our sacred vision by narrowing our focus. What do I mean by that? Broaden our vision by narrowing our focus. I want us to broaden our vision by narrowing our focus on the person that is before us, person that is next to us, person that is behind us. We must focus on the person before us, see more broadly. Because you can't see a person before you if we can't see the person before us. We can't see the other. Vision is narrow. We're blind. And not only the person before us do I want us to narrow our focus onto, to broaden our vision. The person before us, the person behind us, the person next to us, but also that person within us. How often do we narrow our vision of ourselves? Yes, our vision of the other, we narrow. We want to broaden our vision. Judaism is very, very grounded in the practical expression of the sacred, of the holy. It has to manifest itself on the human plane. In humanity. Not in humanity. In humanity. Not in humanity. It has to manifest itself in your conduct with your fellow human being. Not just, I am communing with the universe, but I don't recognize the universe or the world that is before me in this person, that person, in every person. I don't want to hear about your sacred vision. I don't want to hear about your spiritual life. You can't see world, person right before you. Vision is not inclusive of the other. Sacred vision is not broad. There's a teaching in what is called the Midrash, Jewish body or genre of writing. Midrash, from the Hebrew root of darash, or lidrosh, means to search, to examine, to inquire, to explore, investigate. Very rich word. We have a whole genre of literature on that, and it's poetic, metaphoric, not literal. And in this body of literature, many different bodies under this rubric of Midrash. In what is called the Medrash Rabbah, Midrash, again, my Yiddish, Medrash, but Midrash, say Midrash. In the Midrash Rabbah on Deuteronomy, an amazing teaching. Amazing teaching. And this teaching is about 1,100 years old, this text, and it's not the oldest text. We have texts over 1,500 years old which teach this similar idea, but not in this imagery. This imagery is just brilliant. It's rooted actually in the Bible, Hebrew Bible, and the New Testament, and all sacred wisdom. But this teaching gives us the why I should look at you, why we should look at each other. This wonderful universe we have to explore. We can explore each other together. Have a broader vision through focusing on the world that is before you, called that human being. This midrash, this poetic exploration and examination of a particular biblical text, gives this teaching. And it explains again why I should view you, why we should view each other with broader vision, broader reference, and with broader reverence. Medrash says Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Rabbi Joshua ben Levi said, Ikanya mechalaches lifnei ha'adam. An image is going, there's that participle again. An image goes or is going before the person, the human, meaning every human. There's an image. We're going to see what that image is. An image goes before the human being, every human being. Every human being, saint and sinner alike. Image goes before, is going before the human being. And this image that is going before every person has heralds proclaiming before the person, before every person. Not only an image, got a convocation, so to speak, of angelic, holy creatures proclaiming something. What does it say? Tenu makaim ba'i kunin shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This processional that is going before every one of us proclaims, make a place, make room, make space for the image of the Holy One. Blessed be He. The divine presence, the divine one, or again, if you don't have a reference for the divine, for the more elevated aspects of our humanity. This is something that we should all celebrate and herald and recognize before every one of you as you walk through life, and before everyone who walks by you is an image. And there's a herald or a heralding of angelic beings, or just your own angelic presences, saying, make way for the image of the Holy One, blessed be He. Make way for the glorious presence of something that is before you, that you often and I often and we often fail to recognize, because that person isn't my kind of person. Every person we may not relate to. It's fine. But when it says make place, make space for the image of the Holy One is coming before you, make a space, make a place, tenu makom, in your heart, where you can see and receive that glory of the other, holy beauty of another fellow human being. That's the idea for me, broadening our sacred vision by narrowing my focus on to what is so, it's an absolute vision that I see within you, because it's proclaimed everywhere you go. That's your glory, that's all of our glory. And if we were to look at others that way, I know that person frustrates me. Yes, that person is just really more than frustrating. We all have that same image. We can honor that image even if we may not particularly want to hang out with them. They may not be of our, might have just differences, but they can be different and equally holy, equally beautiful, equally magnificent. If we walk with that vision, not only will it broaden our vision, it'll broaden our world. It'll broaden the whole world, bringing us together. But we have to see the other as something more than other. And that's often our problem. We look at the other differently, and therefore we won't live with them. They are the other. I'm not saying we have to agree on anything. We can differ on everything, from politics to faith to diet. But that's irrelevant to who you ultimately are, to who we all ultimately are. There's something holy or exalted, an exalted aspect of our humanity, or there's a divine dimension of our beings that every one of us has, saint and sinner. And it doesn't mean I approve of your action, but there's some divine potential within all of us. Maybe we can help cultivate. So broadening always, for me, begins by narrowing my focus onto the depth and the breadth and the beauty and the light of the infinite that is within each one of us and that is coming before each one of us as we walk through life, but that I fail, we often fail to see or even look at. It's ultimately grounded in Genesis 1:26. Salmenu kid musenu. Our image and our likeness were made. Beautiful image that we all have, and it's worthy of beholding. Pray that we all learn to see with broader eyes, the broader heart, so we can recognize the other. So that's my focal point, number one, of broadening our vision on the personal, on the person. And yeah, it had a little overtone of the sacred, because there's something more within the person. Now I will do my second reference as far as broadening our sacred vision, actually focusing on sacred vision, sacred practice, sacred tradition, our religious vision. And just like my personal had a little bit of the soul in it, we got to see each other as more than simply atoms and blood and guts. soulful focus now. It is. It's going to be a spiritual focus, broadening our spiritual vision, but as we'll see, it also has a little bit of an emphasis, actually a real emphasis, in manifestation in the human. So our personal involves the sacred, and the sacred has to involve the personal. The reason I often focus in my talks on broadening our vision, specifically our sacred vision today, is because sadly, or even tragically, what so often happens as a result of our sacred practice, as a result of our religion, is that we narrow our vision because of and through our religious wisdom, our religious practice. So often it is our spiritual tradition that causes us to see less broadly. Or maybe I should refine it into we narrow our broad spiritual vision to such an extent that it forces us to see through a narrow sacred lens. But either way, we all know how much. Read history, or if you've just lived, we've all seen people with a religious calling, a religious practice, who live lives that are not very broad, that are not very inviting, that are not very engaging, that are not very honoring, that are in fact very dark. And I'm not picking on anyone. Everyone here is going to have, oh yeah, it's them, it's them. No, it's us. It's all of us. From those who have no reference for faith, humanistic orientation, or you are on fire for God. We all take our holy visions, whether it's through the lens of humanism or it's through the lens of the divine, and we narrow the holy wisdom that has such holy potential to bring about healing, connection. Doesn't make life perfect, but it brings us together. The tragedy is that which is supposed to unite us as far as a spiritual vision, faith vision. That which is supposed to unite us so often divides us. It makes us into the other. And again, I am talking about everyone. I am not picking on one community, one faith orientation, those who lean right, those who lean left. It's a human failing that we all unfortunately impose upon the beauty of our visions, of these broad visions. Humanism is such a broad vision. The inhumanity, that's one word, the inhumanity, this time I mean it by one word, the inhumanity that has been done in the name of, shall we say, those who aren't believers, is horrific, just as inhumanity has been done in the name of those who proclaim one God. It's supposed to make us all children of the one. Family should be able to live together. So we all do it, all faiths, all non-faiths, we're human. And so my hope here today is at least to just remind us, the very least to remind us, whether again you're on the spectrum, religious, humanistic outlook, they're both broad and deep visions that will heal and that will enlighten. We have to find a way. Cultivate honor. The other. This religious context for the sacred other. Protestant Reformation against the Catholics, and who knows how many other faiths. We could spend the rest of the week talking about all the different religious traditions that have failed to live up to their vision. We don't see the holy of the other religions. We see them as other. And my hope for all of us is that we can learn to see the holy other in the other. They are other, but they're also sacred. And what I'd like to do now is simply just honor you with time to ask if you have any questions. Happy to stay after for a little while, but if anybody has any questions, not, I'll give a summary thought or a summational thought about how I'd like us to leave and what I'd like us to leave with. First, I'd like to hear if anybody has any reflections on the nature of broadening in its Hebraic sense or in your own sense.
When did broderie became a thing? You know.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Sorry. Yes.
When did what? A thing? Yeah.
Sorry. Just trying to figure out a way how to.
Could you put the mic just a little closer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Trying to make it louder. Like, is it the same as like normal, like a church or something like that? I'm not trying to make it.
Are you asking maybe like?
You know what? You know what? Let's talk after when you can. We can just talk privately and.
Okay, that'll be good. We can talk after.
I think broadening to answer the part of the question that I heard. What was your name? Hannah? Oh, beautiful name. The root of your name, Chana, in Hebrew is to give graciously. So the idea of broadening, when did this become important? I would say always. That's what faith is meant to do. That's what our lives are meant to become. We're meant to blossom into more breadth, depth, and we can do it with the wisdom of our various traditions that our saints and sages have given us. Yes, sir?
Could we maybe use Father Abraham in broadening and coming closer to one another?
Could everybody hear the question? I can repeat it, or, you got the mic. Let's hear your voice. They're tired of hearing me.
We're never tired of hearing you. My question is that Abraham is the father of Christians, Jews, and Muslims. And from what we've learned today about broadening, could we use Father Abraham as a catalyst to have greater understanding between us all, to see the holiness, if I can quote you, the holiness between Jews, Muslims, and Christian,
And humans.
and humans?
Abraham, his name originally was Avram, Abram. And Avraham means the father of, fancy word, make it sound better, multitudes. But he's the father of us all, in one sense, of the Abrahamic faiths. And the answer is yes, because we are one family. But how often do we see ourselves as a family? And his original name, Abram, or Avram, actually is of and father, and Ram, means to elevate or to exalt. He is a father, the more broad way, or a broader way of, to use the word, seeing our forefather, our ancestor, Abraham, whether we're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, human, Buddhist, the idea of Abraham, of Avram, of Abram, the idea of Abram is what is critical. Because his name means exalted father, exalted parent, elevating parent. The hope is that sacred wisdom that he offered, but also that all traditions offer through their founders, through their fathers, and mothers. That should be exalting. It should lead to exaltation, not to division, not to separation. We have a common root. We have a common core. And I hope our spiritual outlook on life is able to see, or our humanistic outlook on life is able to see that we are a family. Children of the one, or we are the biological offspring of that original pot in the pond that we all came from. We all have a reference and we all have a source, but we all have something we can offer each other, but we have to learn to see more within each other and within ourselves. So maybe we have time for one more question. We got one more minute.
The idea of broadening by focusing really resonates with me. I'm curious, in your experience, because we all get so closed off in our little worlds and our little perspectives, what are some things from your perspective that we can do to learn to see the other person in a meaningful way, get beyond our cultural or religious prejudices?
I would root it back into that idea, again, whether you see something more to our humanity, an angelic side or a holy side, or just simply the higher potentials that we all have within us that we fail to live up to with love, charity, forgiveness, and mercy, service. I would say that image, those are the images that we all have within us, and many others. Higher potentials, soulful qualities. We all have that. And the imagery of that midrash, that poetic, metaphoric teaching, homiletic teaching, is that every one of us has it. I would say right now, turn to the person next to you. I mean it sincerely, and I'll turn to my new BFF, right? Professor, just kidding. Who did you walk by? Who did you not acknowledge? Who did you not see that holiness within? That heralding presence that says there is something monumental and majestic within you. I didn't see it within you. I'm sorry. And I'm hoping I am able to walk by you and see something that elevates me and reminds me that I also have that. And that's what I want to live with. Every one of you, even if the person frustrated you. That doesn't mean we accept everybody's actions. And if somebody's harming you, you don't say as they're beating you down, oh, I see the divine image in you, Om Shanti. No. But we still recognize, even within that vile person, that there is something of redeeming value that they need to stop. And there need to be consequences to their actions. Fine. But I can never fully and solely diminish you because of your actions, because there's something more exalted within you, within all of us. So look at each person. That's the most practical way. Judaism is very soulful. I don't want to go, I talked about the intro, she had me write something up, or they did. I do. I focus on the mystic. But as long as the mystic manifests itself in the mundane, you get a big amen from me, and a hallelujah, and a namaste, and all those good things, whatever else I'm going to butcher. Make sure every person you walk by, this isn't just a teaching, this is a way of life. There is something beautiful, even if you act in a way that is grotesque. And I pray you learn to awaken the broader side and the broader dimension that you have, that we have, and if we do it, that at least this little world right here will be blessed. And I'm looking for blessing. Thank you for blessing me with your presence. Shalom, and take care.
All right, round of applause.
And sorry, this was a prayer shawl. This was a moment of prayer. I should have started with that. This is a prayer shawl. This was prayerful for me. I hope it was prayerful for you. God bless.
All right, if you'd like to stay and ask him more questions, you're welcome to. Don't forget to fill out your surveys, those of you who are in the class. Thank you, everyone, for attending.